how do we handle difficult places, especially how do we deal with difficult places when God seems absent? And I'd like to suggest that maybe it's right in those midst of the most difficult of places that God is most present. And so what I'd like to look at this morning is how God shows up at the times where we enter into the crossroads of our life, and we're forced to make decisions, maybe ones that we would not like to make. Sometimes there may even be decisions that we sort of enjoy making. You know, I was mentioning this morning that the early service that sometimes I struggle about making decisions about what to eat when I go to a restaurant. How many of you have this struggle? And the restaurant might be I suggested it might be between lobster and filet mignon, but maybe it's more like between Taco Bell. It's Taco Bell or McDonald's, which is which restaurant is But nonetheless, when we are forced to make a decision, sometimes it's just tough, because even if it's between two relatively really good things, good choices, but certainly when we feel like there's a downside to the choice, if we come to that crossroads in our life that we say, oh gosh, if I go this way, it could be good, but it could be really lousy, and we look down that path and we say which path to take. And sometimes what we're doing really is we're saying this path would have kind of short-term blessings, but maybe long-term problems, and this path maybe it's short-term problems, but maybe long-term blessings. And the idea of the idea that we're going to be facing a short-term problem has to do with dealing with a cross that we might have to deal with. So this morning we're going to be talking about the crossroads that we come to, and sometimes a cross that we need to bear in order to find what we're really looking for out of life. There was a guy by the name of Jeremiah. Let's see. This is I'm not sure. I might need some help here. Larry, I think it's not clicking, it's not moving for me. I don't know. I'm clicking, but it's not moving. Here we go. But there's a guy by the name of Jeremiah. He's a prophet. And at this time, when he's speaking, the city of Jerusalem, where he's located, is under siege. There's an army that's all around the city, and it's the Babylonian army. It's the most powerful empire of the world at its time. And there was another competing empire, and that was Egypt. And Egypt was on the march as well, and so the Babylonians left that siege to battle with the Babylonians. So you have a fight going on between Egypt and Babylon. Most of the people in Jerusalem are rooting for Egypt to win. They think that this is the way that life is going to be best for them. This is the easiest route. This is what they're hoping for. Sometimes we've got this thing going in our own life where we're saying, gosh, I'm at a crossroads. I sure hope life turns out a certain way. And so we kind of put all our eggs in that basket, and that basket is not exactly the one God has in mind. Sometimes it's like we're writing the script. We would like to think that we're writing the script of life. How many of us feel like we would like to write the script of our own life? And we're like, this is the story of my life, and this is how I'd like to see it go. And so we're writing along, and all of a sudden it seems like somebody reaches down and pulls the pen out of our hand. And they start writing a different script for us. How many of you had a script going? It's worse. It's not what you want it to be. It's like somebody else is writing that script. We're saying, wait. I'd like to get that pen back. And so our whole objective is somehow to grab hold of that pen. And the problem is, the person who has the pen is God. And what we're fighting against is God's control in the situation. And what God wants to do as he presents us with crossroads in life is to say, don't be so sure that if you see a cross in one of those crossroads, that it means that God is not a part of it, or that's the direction you're supposed to avoid. The Lord said to his people, this is Jeremiah, you are standing at the crossroads. So consider what path you're going to take. Ask where the old, reliable paths are. Ask where God was going to show up. Ask the path that's going to lead to blessing, long-term blessing, and follow that path. And if you do, you're going to have rest for your soul, no matter what you're dealing with, if you follow the path that's in the direction that God says, okay, this is what I'm writing. This is the story I'm writing for your life. But they said, and so many of us say, I don't want to follow that path. If there's a cross in it, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And that's kind of the way we are most of the time. But this is not the way Jesus lived life. Jesus, something got popped in here. This is good. This is a good. I didn't realize this was going to be here, but it's good nonetheless. You know, this is an amazing thing when I preach a message, and I'm kind of thinking I know what's going on, and then all of a sudden I'm not writing the script of my own message. Somebody drops in a slide that I didn't even know was going to be there. Where's Matt? Matt is okay. How many of you all know who Eric Clapton is, by the way? Okay, very good. How many of you know who Jeremiah the prophet is? I'm okay. That's good. That's good. I'm glad you know both. I'm just always curious about HarborPointe. Eric Clapton happened to play the guitar, right? Okay, and he wrote some songs, and he wrote a song about being at crossroads. And I went down to the crossroads, fell down on my knees. Went down to the crossroads, fell down on my knees, asked the Lord above for mercy. Save me, if you please. Well, that's kind of the direction of what we're going to be talking about this morning. That this is really what God is calling us to do, is when we come to that crossroads, move and oftentimes on our knees toward Jesus. But you know, it's so easy for us to move in different directions. Jesus, by the way, in his own life, modeled for us the path that we're to take. You know, when he was baptized, he went to the Jordan River, and there John the Baptist was baptizing. And as Jesus was coming up out of the water, he saw the heaven being torn open, and the Spirit descending on him like a dove. You see, baptism is a symbol of being buried, dying. It's a symbol. Ruth, you just were baptized. This is a statement that I'm saying, Lord, if you give me a cross, that's good. And the whole idea is that when we go under with the cross of Jesus. And when we rise again, we rise into the fullness of following him. And that's what a baptism is supposed to do. And the voice came from heaven and said, "You are my son, whom I love, and with you I'm well pleased." This is what I want you to do. I want you to die to yourself and rise to something new, wherever I'm taking you. I want you to let go of that pen and give it to me, because I want to start writing the script of your life. And that script, however, is got to involve a cross. It's part of the way it works. You know, that old song, "I have decided to follow Jesus." You know, and no, it's a cross before me. It's what behind me? It's the world behind me. It's though none go with me, still I will follow. It's that challenge. And Jesus said, okay, I'm willing to take up that challenge, Lord. And the Lord says, I'm pleased with that. And immediately, at once, the Spirit sent Jesus into the wilderness, sent him to face trials temptations, difficulties. And Satan entered the picture. And it wasn't like God wasn't aware of this. The Spirit moved Jesus into this place. And he was with wild animals. This is not something you want to do. I mean, Jesus should have said, wait a second, that's not what I signed up for. But Jesus said, okay, if I'm baptized, it means that I'm willing to do whatever, wherever, go wherever, do whatever. And he was with the wild animals, and the angels, however, attended him. Because we find peace for our souls. We find rest in God when we're willing to accept the cross or crosses that he gives to us along the way. Jesus said, and this is the Sermon on the Mount, enter through the narrow gate. For the wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction. This is where everybody's going. This is what everybody's doing because it's easier. It's an easier path. It's a short-term things working out okay, but long-term, it's an escape. But it doesn't really address the issue. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. And so this is why Jesus is saying, okay, I want you to think hard about this because this is what life is all about. This is what's really crucial. It's when you get to a crossroads, take the path that not everybody else is going on. I remember my son was when he was my middle son, when he was 19, 20 years old, he had been picked up by the police 5 times, and he would say, every time he'd get picked up, I'd have a talk with him, and I'd say, you got to let go of those friends. Those friends are not your friends. You got to let go. And he would say, well, everybody I know is doing drugs. I mean, all the people I know are doing it. And he was right. There were a lot of people in his world, that was what was going on. And the 5th time that he'd gotten picked up, he was in a hospital bed and he was in detox and same story. I said, Jared, you gotta let go of these friends. And he said, again, that same thing. The only people I know are doing this. And Ann said to him, there are 2 people I know would love to be your friends if you'd let them. And he said, and they don't do drugs. And he said, who are they? And Ann said, it's your 2 brothers. Now, today, as we speak, Jared and his younger brother are together. They're over in Richmond. Do you know what they're doing in Richmond, Ray? They're watching the Redskins right now. Ray, Ray's a sinner. Ray is one of those sinners, and he's proud of it. He's Dallas. What can I say? But yeah. This is. But they're best friends, partly because there's only so many people. There are only so many people who are saying, I want to follow the narrow way. I mean, there are only so many. Sally cries out for people that will join her in prayer, but there are only so many that seem to have a hunger. There are only so many people. Brett cries out, we need to go out and share, but there's only so many, it seems like, Brett. There's only so many here in this room or wherever people gather for worship. There's only so many. You are here with a great opportunity to say to Jesus, at the crossroads of my life, in the crossroads that I'm facing right now, I want to follow Jesus. It doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. I want to go that way. I want him to take the pen of my life and keep writing out the story. That's what I want. This is what Jesus said. From that time on, as he's gathering with his disciples and having a retreat and trying to really share with them some meaningful things. So from that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders and the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and the third day be raised to life. This is Jesus' destiny. Jesus said, "This is my destiny." And when Jesus started sharing these words, you have Peter who comes along and says, "Jesus, let's get that pen and let's write something different." "Never, Lord. That's not the story. I want to write a different story for you, Jesus." And this is what Jesus said to him: "Get behind me, Satan. You're a stumbling block. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. I have something else in store for you. It's a plan that's not the same plan that you have for yourself," which, when all is said and done, I don't think we're going to say, "Well, gosh, I lived with this in a big house with this nice car, and I saw this, and I went to Hawaii, and I did." We're not going to. We're going to. The issue is going to be, "Lord, I want to be with you." When it's all said and done, that's what we're going to say. "Lord, I just want to be with you." And that, he says, and that eternal life starts right now. It doesn't wait. It starts. Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will find it. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul?" That is really a good question. If your soul is being destroyed, you can have all kinds of stuff. I've been thinking about this. How many people have made it to the top of their profession only to give up their lives because they say there's nothing there. I'm at the top, but there's something missing. I'm missing out. My soul is dried up. You see, your soul is what's really essential and important. And what's going on right now in the crossroads that you're facing, it is your soul that can either be more and more open to the reality of God, or it can become more shriveled as we become more concerned about our own direction and destiny. And there may be right now a struggle that's going on at that crossroads that no one else sees or knows about. But God says, this is really, really something special. It's not what anybody else can see, but it's what I see. And I'm seeing victory here because I see somebody in their soul saying, "Lord, I'm yours." And it doesn't show up in any other area because there are no rewards for that. There's nothing on the outside that seems to reflect that. Jeremiah the prophet was just saying, "Gosh, no one seems to recognize that I'm saying, God, I'm open to your direction." No one is affirming that. And the same thing can be for those of us who are saying, "Lord, I'm yours." It may be no one else is saying that. Some of you may be familiar with the WWJD, What Would Jesus Do? Remember when that was big, I guess, a while back. It actually, What Would Jesus Do is a statement that was big for many, many years. It comes from a book. Some of you may... Do any of you recall the book that What Would Jesus Do comes from? It's In His Steps. And it was written about the turn of the century by a guy that was saying, he was a pastor, and it was about a pastor who's in a church, and the church is happening. I mean, it's a wealthy church, and everybody in town is coming to the church, and things are going on in the church, and the pastor's busy, and the pastor's kind of a big wig in the town, and things are going on, and in comes this guy who's homeless. And no one really wants this guy around, and this pastor has this crisis of conscience. And he says, "Well, gosh, what would Jesus do in this situation? What would Jesus do with this?" And that question just kind of motivated this guy, this pastor, and it sort of kind of spread through the church and then to others. And it's a great story. in his steps. It's worth reading. It's a great story. It's drawn from this passage in 1 Peter chapter 2. It says, "To this you were called, because Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps." This is what we're to be doing as well. What would Jesus do? Well, Jesus would come to the crossroads and Jesus would say, "Okay, I'm willing to go whatever direction you want me to go, Lord. That's what I want to do." Now, there's a crossroads back in the Old Testament where Abram and his nephew Lot both had become very wealthy, and you would think, well, gosh, if you both become wealthy, everything is good. But even though they became very wealthy in livestock and silver and gold, what happened was that they began to argue with one another over who has rights over certain grazing lands. And so they began to quarrel. So they're fighting now with each other rather than being able to be at peace. And so what Abram does is he says, let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herders and mine, for we are close relatives. Is not the whole land before us? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. He says, whatever you want to do. And Lot, so Lot comes to this decision time, and he says, well, gosh, what's going to make me happier? I think what's going to make me happier is if everything works out just as easily as possible. And the easiest route sometimes is not the route that God chooses for us. It says Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out toward the east. And whenever the scriptures talk about setting out toward the east or the east, it's always the same way that we would use the south and say, gosh, everything's going south. It's the wrong direction. Lot looks around and says, gosh, everything is better, easier, simpler. I'm going to be a greater success. It's all about me. And that path destroyed him. The two men parted company, and the path that Lot took was the path that led him away from God. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. And he just said, okay, he had a direction that he was taking, but at the crossroads he says, I'm going to take the easy route, the escape plan, the plan where there's fantasy, where things can go my way, where I can write the script for my life. And God said, gosh, your life, your soul is going to be destroyed as you write your own script. Another passage in the Old Testament. Now fear the Lord, Joshua says, and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods of your ancestors' worship beyond the Euphrates River in Egypt, and serve the Lord. When you come to the crossroads, get rid of the gods of your life, the things that you worship. And that's kind of hard to do, isn't it? Our gods, gosh, I've got a God in each of my back pockets, I pull this is one God. I don't want to see that anything happening to that God. And then this God. I got these two gods. In fact, Siri tells me what to do all the time. It's kind of like my second wife now. It's kind of, get up, you missed your meeting. This is how many you all have a couple gods that are vying for everything in your life? And he's saying these gods are seeking control, and our souls begin to dry up when these gods take precedence. When we say we're building our life around these two gods. And I've seen this I wish I could say, gosh, doesn't affect me, but it does. I get wrapped up. Last night I couldn't sleep because I'm thinking about, Jeff, I'm thinking about that house over there. that Jeff's been working day and night at this house and working crazy, and there's the people. We have a rental house, and the people there had some animals, and it kind of doesn't smell real nice now, and And Jeff's over there, and I'm hoping that smell is going to go. And then I'm thinking, oh gosh, this is going to cost money. Everything's going to cost money. I'm looking at that, and I can't sleep. And gosh, how many of you have a no sleep problem? And it often comes down to this guy right here. It's just this is my. Sally prays for me all the time about 3. You know what I try to do is resolve all my problems at 3 a.m. It didn't work, Sally. You should have prayed harder. No. I had one of those where I was sleeping peacefully until 3 a.m. and I'm trying to think about how I can make it all work. But it's because these gods are in my life. I can't let go of my gods. And Joshua says, but if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you'll serve, whether the gods of your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you're living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. That's what I wish I could say, that's the way I do it. A lot of times I'm on the wrong side of how this works. Jesus had a different direction. He was going a little farther when he was praying. He was praying with a few of his close disciples, and he was praying earnestly because he knew the next day the cross was before him. And going a little farther, he fell on his face to the ground. And he prayed, "My Father, if it's possible, may this cup be taken from me. I don't want this cross. This is not what I have in mind. Lord, if it's possible, let me write the script for my life." And then Jesus said something that's so critical, "Yet not as I will, but as you will. I am submitting to your will." I had a pastor that used to say, there is no problem beyond surrender. There is no problem outside of the point where we say, "Lord, I'm yours. Whatever you want, I'm willing to do. Wherever you want to go, I'm willing to go that route. I'm open to whatever you're saying, whatever you're doing." One of the biggest crossroads I had to face was when I was 50 years old, and I'd been single for 9 years, and I was flying out to Virginia from Indiana to meet for the second time a person named Ann Finley. I met her 2 weeks ago and decided, and she had flown out to Chicago, and we had a great weekend together, and then I was flying to Virginia, and I was going to spend a weekend in Virginia with Ann. And I was at a crossroads in my life. And it's not something I would ever, what I did, it was so out of my character. For 9 years, I've been single, and I have restrained myself for all I can, because women can really get you into a heap of trouble. Do you know that? How many people know that that's the case? It just can happen. Let me tell you, and so I'm there, and when I arrive, Ann says, she said, I need to go to this nursing home where she's the administrator, because I'm supposed to be serving the residents. The staff is supposed to serve the residents, and all the wait staff is no longer doing that. It's just going to be all the administrator types doing the heavy lifting, the grunt work. And so she was there working with everybody. But when we got there, when we walked through the door, there's this woman in a wheelchair, and Ann bent down and kissed her on her forehead. And I said to myself, "Gosh, Lord, as weird as this seems, I've seen this person only now 2 times in my life. But I said, she's the kind of person that I'm supposed to ask to marry me. And it was a crazy decision. It's a big mistake. No, it was wonderful. It was really. No, you know what? That's. It was like the pen had been taken just out of my hands. I was really wanting to control that pen. It was just like, choo, it was taken out of my hands. The decision was made, and it was sort of made like, because somehow God had made this decision. I was just kind of following in his footsteps. And you know, there are all kinds of big and little crossroads that we're into. But the cross that I was asked to give up was my control over my future at that point. No longer can write the control of my own life. I'm inviting another person in to help write that. God has given us all different kinds of crossroads. We're facing crossroads right now. And a lot of times we say, well, if there's a cross involved in it, then I'm gonna scoot around it. But God is saying, if the cross is there, it not only does it not mean that you shouldn't go there, but it's probably something that you should really say, Lord, is this something I'm supposed to embrace with every part of my being? Is this the cross that is my destiny? Is this the cross that I have been called to enter into? Is this your calling in my life? You know, and Cynthia would say, being here is such a blessing for me. To have you as my friends is just, it's one of the highlights of my life. I've been privileged to this season to be here with you. And make new friends. By the way, yesterday we had a work clean day, and you throw this out. You don't know who might show up. Gosh, Troy came, and I said, "What are you doing here, Troy? This is a mistake." He brought Sanaya with him, and I said, "Do you think it's Girls' Blast Day or something?" No, he says, "No, I'm here to work." And I said, "Oh, great." Well, I had a rake in my hand, and I said, "Here." Yeah, it was perfect timing. I mean, it was when I can delegate. It was beautiful. But gosh, there's so much that got done. It was just exciting. Maya did some painting, and there's nothing like age painters. And Jordan, yeah, that room is going to get painted it's on its way, and the outside got. But there's something. All I'm saying is, there's something really wonderful about being on this adventure. I mean, there's nothing worse than working and cleaning, isn't there? I mean, it's just terrible. I mean, it's nothing worse, but you do that, and you know you're doing it, and that God's there with you in that process. It becomes this humongous blessing. It's this accepting a cross as your calling. Accepting a cross as your calling, as your destiny. And the cross varies, and it's different for each of us. But this is God's challenge to us. Not my will, but thine be done. Sally, if you go over to the cross, and anyone that would like to pray with Sally, she's over there. But we're just this is just a time to be able to say, Lord, I'm at a crossroads. I'm in need of prayer right now. I need the cross that you're giving me. right now. Lord, I pray for those of us that are struggling this morning because there has been something that is just not the way we would want to have things written. It just really goes counter to what we have in mind. We're upset. It's a struggle. And Lord, I just pray for a willingness to embrace the cross at the crossroads. And I just pray for the peace that passes understanding when we do. I just pray that both are going to happen. Your peace as we embrace your cross. Your peace as we embrace your cross. In Jesus' name, amen.
Christ is my reward and all of my devotion.